I've got to go, all right? No, they're here, they're watching me right now. I'm not telling them about the rash. Okay, okay, love you. Okay, yes. All right, big hugs. Okay, all right, bye. What rash? This week we'll be continuing our adventure with Unit 3 Area Study 1, focusing on global actors, by turning our attention to the next global actor we need to know about, the United Nations. According to the study design's key knowledge and key skills, what you need to know about the UN are the following. First, you should be able to identify and explain the aims of the United Nations. Second, you should be able to evaluate the power of the United Nations. And third, you need to assess the extent to which the UN achieves those goals. Before we get into any of that, this lesson will cover the background to the United Nations. The UN is an intergovernmental organization that arose from the ashes of World War II to foster cooperation between states with the aim to prevent another global catastrophe of the magnitude of World War II from ever occurring again. At its founding, the UN was structured into 6 major offices and organs, all designed to do different things. The most important of them were the Secretariat, the Security Council, and the General Assembly. The person who represents the UN globally is known as the Secretary General. The first Secretary General was a Norwegian called Trygve. Maybe the second Secretary General's name will be easier. Dag Hammarskjöld. Immediately after its birth, the UN did seem like it could be a pretty effective organization, helping end the Suez Crisis and intervening against North Korea's invasion of South Korea in the 1950s. However, the UN, and particularly the United Nations Security Council, soon fell prey to Cold War politics. In turn, from 1950 to 1991, the UN was basically paralyzed by the USA and the Soviet Union's half-century drama known as the Cold War.
American badass! Watch me kick! Pussy's up in your fucking face, right?
In the 1990s, the UN, no longer paralyzed by the Cold War, which had officially ended around 1991, took on a more active role in global politics. Its peacekeeping missions and budget expanded rapidly, it oversaw elections in newly democratic states, and in 1991, in a rare display of cooperation, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council authorized a US-led force to intervene in Kuwait and push back Saddam Hussein's Iraqi army who had invaded the oil-rich country. Indeed, the first half of the 1990s seemed to herald a new era of cooperation, and the UN was about as happy as the Kazoo Kid. However, that'll change in the second half of the 1990s, which saw the UN face a severe crisis of legitimacy. The UN found itself struggling to respond to the rise of the so-called New War, that is, wars that occur within states rather than between states. The UN's trademark and much celebrated peacekeeping missions found themselves unable to respond to a spate of mass atrocity crimes, such as genocides in Bosnia and Rwanda, which occurred despite the presence of UN peacekeepers. In the early 2000s, the UN found itself unable to live up even to its primary purpose, which is to prevent interstate war, when the United States and the United Kingdom, both members of the Security Council, ignored the Security Council, broke international law, and led a coalition of around 45 states to invade Iraq, overthrow Saddam Hussein, and create what academics have now called a catastrophic shitstorm of biblical proportions. In 2016, the UN is staffed mainly by interns with international relations majors, because you can't spell international relations without intern, who hope to go on to become the next Secretary General.
Lauren B. Lauren, you accept this rose?
I just don't really get it. I don't know why, like, why it's not happening, and I don't get, like, I'm ready, and I don't know why.
But seriously, at a glance, the UN does appear to be a deeply flawed institution, and in many respects it is a deeply flawed institution. However, the UN's contributions also need to be recognised. The UN and its tens of thousands of staff find themselves day in and day out at the coalface of humanitarian crises of global proportions which are rapidly multiplying, delivering assistance and coordinating responses to everything from natural disasters to disease outbreaks. And, most importantly, they're keeping thousands of academics and pundits who have made careers pontificating about the future and relevance of the United Nations in jobs. We can all agree they're the true contributors. And they do all that, by the way, on a budget of, wait for it, $5.4 billion a year. By comparison, the city of Los Angeles alone has an annual budget of $8.4 billion.
That's crazy.
Yes, it is crazy considering what the United Nations is expected to do. Okay, that's the background to the United Nations covered. Next lesson, we're going to look at the aims of the United Nations. But until then...
Can we do more Kazoo? Yes.